Hey everyone, my name's Martha, coming from my kitchen to yours with some of my best recipes and meals. Enjoy! Hey everyone, today we are cooking caramel sauce. Very easy. I'm going to make it salted caramel, but if you just want to leave the salt out, it's just caramel. I make this to go on stuff, either like what do I use? Pancakes, or on cakes to make caramel cake, to make caramel cheesecake, or I actually sometimes make it up when I've got, like today, a pot of cream that's going to go out of date. It's a good way of using the cream up in a way that you can then store for longer in your fridge. I think most caramel recipes will say you can store it for up to 2 weeks in your fridge. I sometimes have gone a bit longer and it's been okay, it sometimes crystallises, but do that at your own risk. So we are going to take one saucepan, any size as long as it all fits in, and we are going to get the scales out, measure out, so there's a lot of sugar in it basically, 300 grams of sugar. It's very easy to remember the measurements of this because there's only a few items. So new back sugar, 300 grams. Sorry, you can't actually see that I'm measuring this, I promise I am. There we go, you can see it here. Okay. 300 grams of sugar. Add to that 60 mils of water. I've got 120 here just in case, but just going to be enough so you can sort of see to get all the sugar damp, and then once you add it to the heat and the sugar starts melting, it will be absolutely fine to go. So really easy. I tend to do this while I'm making something else. If I'm making cakes or whatever, might be while I'm making buttercream up. I'm gonna pop it on quite a high heat. The thing that I always do wrong is put it on too low a heat because I'm worried it's going to burn, and then it actually ends up crystallizing because it's all the water's boiled off. We don't want crystallizing, we want caramelizing. We want the sugar to go brown, and so we're going to put this on a high heat until it turns brown, and rather than stirring, because stirring means you get all the sugar kind of on a spoon or whatever you're using, what I do is just give it a shake. It's better than stirring. So you just give it a shake every now and then, let it to sit. It's going to take about between 5 to 10 minutes to crystallise, so I'm going to get on with chopping up some fruit for tonight, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, right, so we are looking good with our caramel coloured sugar. Every time I lift up the sign to show you it doesn't work, but you've got to trust me, there's caramel in there. Actually, the thing to watch out for, my tip would be that it caramelised super quickly. It sort of was like a very pale brown colour, and then very quickly it got much darker and amber. So now it's an amber colour. The next step is to take it off the heat, but if you can, safely leave the heat on, because you're going to need it in a moment and there's no point wasting energy. You're going to take a whisk and your double cream, and you're going to mix it in. So you're going to pour in the cream quite quickly and mix it in. Now this will bubble up probably because it's quite hot as you whisk in the cream. Just keep going for a bit, and then we're going to add in the butter quite quickly after that. So in goes the cream. I'm going to take a whisk. It will bubble up, it will do weird things like form clumps. Let me show you my nice clump that's going on here. You can kind of see it, there we go, beautiful. It will form clumps, that's okay, it always happens. And so it's gonna be fine. So can't really move the whisk around very much at the moment. I'm gonna add in a nice big blob of butter, and by big I mean about that size. I think it's about 30 grams, I don't really know. It always sort of works. And then once you've added the butter in, as well as the cream, I've got a really big blob, you're gonna put it back on the heat, which will start to melt your blob, and it will become much easier to move the mixture around. But at this point, you don't want to leave it alone like we did earlier with the sort of shaking every minute. Now you want to keep pressing in for that caramel to form, and eventually it will get easier and the blob will be no more. We've been stirring this for about 4 minutes now. Yeah, the blob is quite big to start with of caramel, and then it very quickly melts away. Now what I'm going to do is, because I just don't want to have any waste, is there's a bit of sugar, quite a bit of sugar down the side, that I'm just going to now add in. So now it's hot enough, this should also dissolve away nice and quickly. So I'm just, it's probably not very good for my pans, but the more caramel sauce the better, hey? So just gonna get as much of this sugar from around the edge as possible. You might have this on yours, you might have done better swirling than me when you don't, but just sort of dabbing down the side. Okay, we're good. Right, that I'm now gonna put back on the heat to just absorb that sugar. We've got a gorgeous caramel coloured sauce going on here. It doesn't actually scoop up very well, so it stays very runny until you let it cool. And just gonna adjust the heat a little bit. So I'm gonna keep mixing until that sugar has been absorbed that I've just got from the sides of the pan. But also you want to add in the salt if you want salted caramel. If you want to leave it as normal caramel, that's fine. But I like to give it a bit of a salt kick. So now the hard thing about this is that you can't taste it as you go along because it's obviously quite hot. You want to just not add too much, basically. Salt, enough, like a little bit is enough to give it a bit of a salty kick. And you can actually always add it when it's cooled down, obviously it won't absorb then, but you could add it on top of the sauce once it's in the pot. But hopefully now with adding this over the heat, that salt will absorb in a few minutes. And then you have your caramel sauce. Now it makes about a jar's worth of it. So probably it'll fit just over one of these. So the ideal situation is that you're gonna then use it on something, which I'm gonna do tonight. So I'll show you that recipe in just a moment, because I'm gonna make really easy last minute banoffee pies. But put the rest in the jar, use a little bit on something that you're making for dinner, dessert or breakfast, pancakes. And then it goes in the fridge for about 2 weeks. It's great. Here we have it, our beautiful salted caramel sauce. It is a winner. Beautiful. And then there's just enough for my banoffee pies tonight. So you want to let that cool before you put it in the fridge, as you should with everything. But I could just drink it. So good. Enjoy.